For an astounding 23rd time under Geno Auriemma, UConn on to the Final Four. Kind enough to join us to discuss after they knock off USC a date with Iowa on Friday night. Geno, so often I hear coaches and players in sports after they make it to a certain level, they talk about fighting through adversity. And sometimes I think, no, actually you guys were just a dump truck going downhill. Nobody could stop you. But you all truly dealt with adversity this year. 5 players, significant players lost to injury. To get to this point, what did it require from you and your team?
Well, I think that was a great analogy because I have coached 6 teams that went undefeated that was like a dump truck going downhill. And there's no greater feeling than that going into the NCAA tournament. This is certainly not one of those. This year was one thing after another. And it was something that I think was a culmination of 3 years of losing some big pieces of what we were trying to do and constantly playing with one hand tied behind our back and having to listen to, UConn they're in demise, their dynasty's dead, this and all that, We're playing with half a team and we're in the Final Four. So I don't think we're dead, but we worked pretty hard and here we are.
Here you are indeed. And the other night I wrote a piece about the season in women's basketball and you talking about Paige. And I said, it's funny, it's like people had to remind themselves, oh, yeah, when she came out, she's pretty good. Yeah, she was. Then she went through her injury, as you alluded to. Now she comes back and was so spectacular the other night against another great player and a great team in USC. How do you measure or even explain what Paige Beckers means to your team?
Yeah, you really can't, because so many things get done on the court. Some of them show up on the stat sheet, but some do not. I think you said it right. She became yesterday's newspaper. She won every single award as a freshman, and through no fault of her own, now all of a sudden, she's an afterthought. And, every media, she has to answer, hey, what do you think of Juju? Hey, what do you think of Caitlin? Hey, what do you think of this kid? And, here's a kid that every time she's played a full season or even 3/4 of a season, we're in the Final Four. And one of those years we're in the national championship. So when you see her accomplishments and see the weight that she's carried, I'm just super impressed. She may be used a little bit, but she's not used up. Let's put it that way.
Understood. But I think this alludes, Geno, to something I obviously wanted to talk about, which is that there have been years, and I talked about this the other night, where frankly your team took any drama out of the tournament because you guys were going to destroy people, and then you did. But now feel like there are stars in other places in the country, and clearly Caitlin's been a phenomenon this year. And that's great for the sport. Look, 12.3 million people watched on Monday. It'll be more Friday night watching you all. As a guy whose team has been the gold standard for so long, and a guy that's won more than anybody in your case, what's it been like to see your sport consumed at a level that feels, frankly, more appropriate in line with what it ought to be?
Yeah, no, that's a great great way to put it, Scott. It was almost like we were the UCLA men's version of women's basketball. We sucked all the air out of the room, So the NCAA tournament was about, who was going to finish second to Connecticut. In the beginning, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But then it becomes a bad thing because people want to see, more competition, more great players, more great teams. Things started to evolve, we had a couple injuries. Really good high school players came out, go to different schools. The coaching is better, the players are better, the competition's fiercer, and the game grows. One of the reasons why it grew, people really needed to beat us, which I was praying and hoping for. The only thing worse than losing all the time is winning all the time. Because there comes a point in time where you got to experience losing, experience the heartache, so you can appreciate the winning. You can't knock out the other best heavyweight every time in the first round. You got to get knocked out yourself once in a while. And I think that's made the game bigger and better and stronger. And these personalities that are playing right now, they're just unbelievable. And like you said, I think Friday night's numbers are going to be through the roof, and as they should be.
Sports Center to follow. So all you folks out there, stick around. Watch your boy, the bald-headed guy out here. I'm used to, but I'm not used up either. Geno, I want to close with this. In talking about Paige, it's clear. You want to remind people she's still Paige. And in talking about UConn, you want to remind people we're still UConn. It's rare, though, that you in all these years could ever slide on that underdog role. How do you measure that? How do you approach it? Because I'm sure you don't look at Friday night as some game you can't win, but most coaches like to kind of say, hey, people don't think we're going to win. So how do you approach that?
I actually did say to the players before the NCAA tournament started, I said, you guys are in a situation that has never existed before at Connecticut in the last 30 years. You actually are underdogs. But let's face it, Scott, when we step on the court, nobody's going to think, this is one of those years where UConn, we should feel bad for them and let's give them a break. Or the kids that play for me go, this is one of those years we should just be happy we made the Final Four. That's not how it works up here at Connecticut. That's not how we operate. So we may be the underdog in a lot of people's eyes, but in my players' eyes, when you're UConn, you got to be the top dog, man, and that's who we are.
I'm smiling because I thought about this question all day, and they say you shouldn't ask a question you know the answer to, but I thought that's exactly what you'd say. I always enjoy the conversation, Geno, so much. Friday night at 9, after South Carolina and NC State have the first game, it's Iowa and UConn, and what a night it's going to be in Cleveland, man. Congrats on 23. That's astounding. I appreciate your time always.
Thank you, my friend, and always enjoy our conversations.
Likewise. Thank you, Coach.